But today is Dr. E's open seminar number, where are you at? 50.
Oh my God.
50. With Dr. E's open seminar number 50, man. Dr. E's
away from a year.
2 weeks away from a full year
and
of
2
these
weeks
seminars.
away from the 6-month mark for me.
And the 6-month mark for you. Thank you for being here for 6 months, Mama. It's been great having you. Whether or not we keep you for another 6 months, we're gonna discuss that in renegotiation. You know,
this is my show.
Listen, we'll talk about this. But let me do the intros on your show. All right, let me do the intros on your show. So it's Dr. E's open seminar. Y'all know what it is by now. Education for a new generation. Y'all, same time, same place, every single week. I've done this intro so many times, but over by now. I'm just bored of this. But 7 p.m. GMT, 2 p.m. EST. You know what we do, man. We bring the kind of education. Oh no, we changed it. We bring the kind of expertise you usually have to pay through the nose for, sit in those dry ass lecture theaters with those crusty old white men, but we bring it to a different way. We talk about those subjects that they try not to tell you about in those same old lecture theaters. We give you that education that they would usually try to avoid, because your boy over here, real academic, because I'm Dr. E, fam. Director and lead tutor at TBT, philosopher extraordinaire, all those wonderful things right there. Y'all know how that goes. And then that's your girl, the great dictator Tanzine, PhD to be. Vote for her in the great dictator elections, obviously. Y'all know this by now.
Freddie.
And Freddie is suddenly now part and parcel. Yo, Freddie does not look happy to be on the seminar at all.
No,
like, Freddie does not want to be on the seminar in the slightest. I'm really terrified for Freddie. All right, while you over there doing your terrible things to Freddie.
I'm hugging him.
We got Kareen in the background doing all of our...
Hi, Kareen. We love you.
We love you, Kareen. If y'all don't have a Kareen in your life, go and get one. Be nice to her. We got one. We love our Kareen. She's there in the background doing our work in the chat screen and what have you. So feel free to have a conversation with Kareen, because, you know, we do this for real, man. We really seminar. We really live. Of course, the live show comes up every single Monday, as I said, 7 p.m. GMT, 2 p.m. EST, and then we come back. We don't come back, but y'all get the edited version of the live show every Saturday evening that gets released. So that will drop on YouTube every Saturday night. So you get all the extra clips, you get all the extra edits, you get the cinema escape that runs along the top of what we talk about right here. So you get all the extra information. And peace up, much love. Thank you to Missy, who does all of our editing, of course.
Thank you, Missy.
All the work she does there.
Love you.
We love you.
Look at my little baby hoops.
I like your baby hoops. They're pretty cool.
So cute, right?
But so, like I said, we here to bring you that kind of, like, you know, academic expertise, education for a new generation, all that kind of stuff. Building together. Oh, by the way, while we're here, y'all do your signups. You know, they sign up to the YouTube and hit the bell and the subscribe and the Instagram and the SoundCloud and the fam. If you type it into Google, there is nowhere we're not. There is nowhere we're not. We're on iTunes, we're on Spotify, we're on SoundCloud, we're on Mixcloud, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on Quora, we're on YouTube.
What do they have to type in?
Build on Tutors, TBT Sounds, Dr. E's Open Seminars, anything you like. My name. Hit me. I'm on Amazon. It is the Build on Tutors. How do you not know this by now? I'm on Amazon, fam. Type my name into Amazon.
Oh, yeah, you have a book. He has a book, guys.
Days. It's everywhere. I don't want to hear none of this, like, yo, I can't find you. I didn't know what you were. I don't want to hear none of that.
Phenomenological ontology of freedom, obscuration, and the like.
Yo, and it only took you like a year and a half to get that down.
Yeah. I still don't know exactly what it means in English, but yeah.
What do you say in English?
In English.
As opposed to?
Like, smart.
That's English.
That's smart. That's like nerd. We don't speak that over here. Right, or at least I don't.
Fair. Okay, cool. But that's kind of what we're doing here. So, last week, we had a conversation about what? I don't remember what. What were we talking about last week?
Yeah, I don't remember.
I have no idea. We were talking about, I think we were talking about something to do with the shortcomings and the weaknesses in institutional education, right?
Right.
Their schooling systems, why they don't work. And
I was ranting about students.
You were ranting about students.
Why do I have to have deadlines? Why?
You were ranting about students because we were talking about this.
That's so unfair. Education, I'm the teacher. You're
we the talking.
There's no equality here.
All right, relax.
In the relationship. And I was right. No, it was about liberal education. I was mad about liberal education. Liberal education has really done something that has just destroyed. Like, it's going way too far.
I mean, this is kind of part of what we're going to end up talking about today, because I want to finish up that conversation because we left it.
But it's really a result of American society becoming. We're a bunch of whiny little brats.
that has something to do with economy, and it has a lot to do with culture, and it has a lot to, I mean, we're going to get into all of that, right? All of that is going to come up today.
Can I share a story?
You can share a story.
Somebody
mad story times today.
Yeah, right. Somebody who's from Italy, who's in a PhD program, who I met, was telling me a story about how when he was in undergrad, he was in a lecture one day, and in Italy, like across Europe, education is way more rigorous than it is in the US.
Yes.
Like you have to actually read, you have to actually do stuff, you have to show up to class.
Yeah.
So he happened to not do the reading that day, and he went to class, and the lecturer called on him and asked him a question, and it was very clear he hadn't done the reading.
Right.
So she went up to him and she drilled him in front of the entire class. And she was like, no, she went in and she was like, don't you ever come to my class not having read ever again. So you think that's what education is about? But like she went in front of everybody.
Yeah.
And he said that, after that, he never, ever, ever wanted to be unprepared for class again. And he always made sure to be prepared.
Yeah.
And I will say, I had a similar experience, but it was with lateness. I was taking this one class when I was in my second year of my PhD, and it was a sociology class. And the professor was a really brilliant woman who's done great work, but she's very that lady is tough. But we actually ended up getting cool. Shout out to her. But in the moment I was really mad. So I would show up to class like a few minutes late every day. I did this the first couple classes, and she cussed me out in front of everybody, like straight up, no joke. She was just like, "Let me have it," and I got mad and I caught an attitude, and I didn't respond to her, and I just looked at her. So we had like a standoff in class. But she thought I was gonna be like, "Oh, I'm so sorry," but I just sat there and I stared at her and I just iced her the whole time. And then after that, I just stopped speaking to her. Like she saw me in the hallway one day and she just waved at me, and I just turned around and kept talking to the person. I thought I was.
So what you said is you're a dick.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Yeah. But her doing that, I actually respected it because I was like, I was never ever late for that class again.
I bet you won.
I was never late. And then as time went on, I was like, oh, I actually do respect that. And then me and her got cool. She's a great professor. I wish I remembered her name. But she's a great professor.
I'm very, 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 very clear about where I think the authority and the responsibility lines lie, particularly in higher education, right? So particularly once you get past the kind of like high school, whatever else, once you're in higher education, and it really is my responsibility, especially when you start asking me to pay for this ish. Like once I'm paying for this, it's a different story now. Like once you charge me for it, you've made it a different thing. But that's kind of what I want to get into today. So part of what we didn't finish off last week, and what we're going to kind of wind back around to talk about, but part of what we didn't finish off last week is the idea of why we think it's the case that, or let me rephrase that, what the essential kind of what the root of the scam is, right, in education. And we talked about like authority, we talked about responsibilities, we talked about like, whose responsibility is to do what, and like, students complaining about their work and teachers complaining about the workload they've got, and we talked about all of it. Here's my thing though. Here's what I think is, and this is why y'all are here. You know what I'm saying? Philosophical expertise, man. Philosophical expertise. And it comes with a little twiddly fingers. You gotta have the twiddly fingers.
What is this?
Philosophical expertise comes twiddle fingers. You know what this is for? Wow. I'll tell you what this is for, right? This, because one time, all right, mad story time today. I know what's going on. One time I was in a cab on the way home from one of these seminars. I'm driving home, I'm in the cab in the back of the car, whatever. So we coming home from one of these seminars. And while I'm going back, my man starts, they talking. He's a cab driver. He starts talking, what you do, whatever. So he asked me. So at one point I tell him, like, no, I'm a philosopher. So what you mean you're a philosopher? I was like, bro, I have a PhD in philosophy. That's what I mean. Like, like I do this. I'm good. I do this for a living. What do you want from me? I'm good at philosophy. Like, I don't know how to explain this to you. That's what I do.
That's a weird response, though. I'm a philosopher.
No, because he asked me like what my area of expertise was.
Oh, okay.
Because I told him I was a teacher. That's my go-to. I teach. And then when he went, but what's your area of expertise? And I was like, I teach English, I teach whatever else. He goes, but what do you do? And I'm like, I'm a philosopher. Cool. So then after I explained this to him, he paused, just stared out the car, carried on driving, just paused for a couple seconds. And then he turned around. Traffic lights. So, does that mean you could tell me the future then, mate?
Good evening. I am Septic pad.
Nah, bro. Nah, homie. No,
Wait,
that don't mean I can tell you.
philosopher meant psychic?
That don't mean I can tell you the future, much. I'm not Mystic Meg. That ain't how this
So
works.
is that what he thought that you meant?
Because when I kind of half chuckled, because like I wasn't, how am I gonna take that seriously? I half chuckled, and he then said, "I'm sorry, mate. The only time I've ever heard of a philosopher was on that Harry Potter." Right. Okay. So what he meant was Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. So he was like, "Okay, so you must know some magic or something. Like you must know some tricks. Like you got a wand? You got a wand there?" Like,
He didn't ask you if you went to Hogwarts or if you saw that Hogwarts.
did you take that special train to get to your school? Did it float in the air before you got there? Did you play that game Quidditch? What team were you on, mate? No, I didn't. No, that didn't. No, that's not what happened. But the point is, ever since that day, when I was telling my brother the story about like what happened in the car, ever since that day, every time we say philosophy, we're like, ooh, because it's like, you know, your magic, your philosophy magicians.
Expelliarmus.
Think the magic. So ever since then, it's like, yeah, like do the magics. So whenever you talk about philosophy, the magics. So let me show you the magics of philosophy. The reason, what I think is the kind of like the essential scam behind education is the idea that, I'll make it real simple. The idea that knowledge can be possessed, and that therefore the university, the kind of lecturer, the teacher, whoever it might happen to be, is the kind of like locus of knowledge, right? That's where knowledge is. They're centered on that particular person, right? So that person either is they harbor all the knowledge there is to have, and you're supposed to somehow draw that from them, or the university they're in is where all the knowledge is kept, and you need to go there because that's where real knowledge is. That issue, that myth, that for me is the central kind of philosophical problem. The idea that knowledge can be possessed, right? And I can sum it up for you without getting too deep into philosophy. Real simple.
Please. What? Continue.
No, that's cool. I know, because I know you. I know you. They don't know you, but I know they're getting to know you. But I know you, so y'all look out for this. When she just went, please, what she meant was, this is long and boring. Please do not talk about philosophy for a long time. Just say the damn thing, because I'm switching off now. That's what I meant. But y'all don't know.
So you understood. So come on.
No, 100%. I read the whole. Please. Continue. No, all right, real simple. It all centers on the word have. See, I made it real simple. It's a 4-letter word. Look at that. The word have, right? And the idea is that it implies, because the English language is so poor, it implies a kind of possession or a kind of like ownership over a thing that just doesn't apply to knowledge. So, let me give an example on it. And we've had this conversation before, you and I. But like, if I have a pen, or if I have a wife, or if I have a flute, different. But I use the same word to describe possessing all three of these things. But I certainly don't possess my wife the way I possess a pen, nor do I possess a pen the way I possess a flute. They're just not the same kind of habit. If anything, when I say I have the flute, it's more like the flute has me.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have the flute, because that makes it sound like I can get rid of it whenever I want. Like, I got it. Like, I went and I caught the flute, I got it. And now I have it. It's like a flute in a Pokeball somewhere. Like, no, that's not how that works. I can just release it. That ain't what that is. It has you with the flute, right? It's a similar thing when you say, again, think about when you say you have a wife, or you have a husband, or you have a boyfriend, or you have a girlfriend, or you have a whatever. When you have a romantic relationship with another person, whoever that person is, I don't care. But the point is, when you have a romantic relationship with that person, you might refer to them as being something that you have, right? You have a romantic relationship with whoever the fudge. Cool. But the truth of it is, when you think about it, it's more like that relationship has you. You see what I'm saying? It's like, you know, you're engaged in a thing. Okay. Like, you're involved in a thing that you're not, like, is not entirely at your disposal. You can't just like turn it off and turn it on as and when you want. You kind of have to respond to what's going on in the relationship. Okay. Like, for example, all right, so if you're living together with your partner, right? The moods that I've had this conversation. All right, let's get into this, because this can piss you off now. Look, watch. I find ways to annoy you. Look. So think about this. If two people living together, male, female, whatever, I don't care, but two people living together, it will happen that, you know, the two of them will have a bad day at the same time sometimes. And then somebody's mood has to take priority. Because you can't both be in a bad mood that day. Somebody has to get resolved. Like, somebody has to.
So somebody has to be the adult and put their stuff to the side. and let the other person
And
have
this
a
is
bad
where
mood.
I'm not saying everything I'm thinking, but you know everything I'm thinking.
This is where you have to put your bad moods aside, and I get to have mine.
I'm so thankful that you can say that. Yeah, nah, for real facts. No, honestly, I'm glad because I didn't want to say that. But it's true. The point is that two people, when in those situations, right, the mood that a particular person finds themselves in ends up dictating the mood of the relationship.
Right.
It's not your fault, not my fault, not whoever's fault in the relationship. People wake up in a mood. Like, what do you want from me? I'm in a bad mood. Maybe I had a bad dream or I had a rough day yesterday. I didn't tell you about. I don't know, whatever. But I'm in a bad mood. Cool. And as a consequence of that, and because I'm engaged in this relationship, that person's bad mood is now going to dominate and dictate the conversation for the course of the next whatever. But it kind of has to be that way because you care about that person. And then even if you don't want it to be that way, you find yourself being drawn into that because you care. So it's not so much that you have that relationship. It kind of has you. Like, it kind of has to have you if you're going to be engaged in the relationship honestly. And this for me is the real point. Think about this. The more sincerely you get into the relationship, right? The more honestly and sincerely you get into the relationship, the more you have to submit to it. Like, the more it has you, the less you have it. The more control you have over the relationship, the more you have it, the more we're talking about that stereotypical toxic type of relationship. So think about the stereotypical examples. You tell me, what's a stereotypical example of a relationship where one person has total control?
Like when a man is super insecure and wants to control everything his partner does. Like, where are you going? When are you coming back? You can't wear that. You're wearing too much makeup, or other men are going to look at you, or, that kind of stuff. Toxic. Ladies, if you are in a relationship like this, toxic, get out. That's not love. That is crazy.
Well, I don't want to say that's not love because it can be, and your man's can be confused. No. Because the two things can coincide.
I'm not saying he can't love you.
Yes,
he may love you, but that is not an expression of love. That is an expression of wanting to control a person, and that's what I mean.
Very true.
That's an expression of power.
Very true. And because gender is what gender is, your man might not even be aware of that. Like, he might not be aware that that's not how you express love.
I think most men are not aware of that.
I think you're probably right.
I think most women are also not aware of that, to be honest with you.
I think you're also probably right.
People think abuse is love. Like, oh, he's so jealous, which is why, they love me because I know they love me because they're jealous. No, they're insecure and they're taking it out on you.
Yeah. I've heard this 1,000. Let me put it to you like this. Story time. What
do you mean you've heard this? You're Arab. This is like how you guys love, all of you. You're like,
Wallahi, it is only love if I can carry her in a sack. You take her in the sack, and if she accepts, she is your wife.
I love you so much. I love you so much. I love you so much. I'm going to cut my arm. I'm going to write you a poem in my own blood. Read it. Read it, you bitch. Read it. She's so English. She took the poem and went, oh, thanks.
I was watching, so I got really into those
Yo, I'm sorry, I mean to offend any of my brothers and sisters from the Arab world. You know what I'm saying? Like, but still,
it's not just Arabs. It's all brown people that do this.
Still the skin, the color, it's not like the motherland. Sorry,
ridiculous. But I was watching this Kuwaiti soap opera, and the people, it was like about relationships and whatever, like getting married and all this. And at one point, somebody said something very matter-of-factly. And they were like, well, unless you are filled with fury over and jealousy, you don't love the person. And they were like, this is so true. Everyone was agreeing. And I was like, oh my God, no.
It's true though. It's true. There's a general sentiment, male and female. Like, I've heard this from my parents. What are we talking about? Like, my parents have told me at some point, both of them, independently of each other. Bro, independent. They got divorced when I was younger, so whatever. But so independently of each other, both of them have told me, if you ain't jealous and if she ain't jealous to the point of it being what we will call toxic, then it ain't love.
Oh no! Please keep moving.
Like, I swear to, let me just tell you this. Let me just give you a heads up and a warning right now, because I know my mother ain't watching these seminars. So let me give you a heads up and a warning right now. If you ever have a conversation with my mother and you tell her that you're not the jealous type, she will then come to me afterwards and go, Wallahi, I think your wife is a whore. And I'm like, okay. Right. Okay, this is okay. So what happened? She told me she's not jealous. I was like, yeah, that doesn't make her a
She's a
whole.
little bit charmota, maybe.
You little sharmuta.
Little.
Yeah, you little sharmuta. But yeah, exactly. So no, but what I'm saying is, those examples, and I'm glad you brought up the examples that you brought up. But those examples are exactly what I mean. We're talking about love expressed through an increased amount of control, and it's not only is it toxic, not only does it not work, not only does it whatever else, but it's antithetical to, it's totally opposite to what we mean by love. Because what that tells you then is, if going in that direction means being in the opposite direction of love and what have you, more control, more toxicity, more if that's what that is in that direction, then if you were to go in the other direction means increasing amounts of submitting to it, less and less and less control. If this is more and more and more control, the scale is you get more toxic the more control you try to implement or take. Well, then presumably it gets less toxic the less control you try to take. Now, that's also dangerous because the partner might be themselves toxic. You don't know who you're with. But the point that I'm trying to make is there's something about having a relationship that's supposed to make it very, very clear and easy to everybody in like everyday terms that some things, when you say I have a thing, you don't mean you have it. You mean it has you.
Yeah.
And it's granted through the poverty of language that we don't have any other way of expressing that. But given experience, you ought to understand the difference between these two things. And the same thing is the case with knowledge. In knowledge, you don't have knowledge. Knowledge has you. Think about the word philosophy. Think about the word philos and Sophia, the love of knowledge.
Sophia means knowledge.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Wisdom. It means wisdom. So think about that word, the love of wisdom or the love of knowledge, right? It was where we get the idea for, where we get the word philosophy from. And then think about what that meant then. Just literally. If you're a Greek and you had, don't forget, the Greeks had 7 different words for love. 7
different types of love, yeah.
There was 7 different ways of referring to love because they weren't making the same mistake the English later on made and only had 1 word for love and 1 word for having things.
Yeah, no, this is the same in a lot of different cultures. I think it's in Urdu, there's 3 different words.
Because they're different
In
loves,
Arabic,
it's not the same.
There's different words, like it's different types of love.
Because it's not the same. Like the way I love, and in English, you can kind of like identify it in really obvious examples. The same with the word have, the word love. It's the same kind of stupid. So for example, if I say I love my car, or I love these seminars, or I love my work, or I love my wife, or all of these are totally different. Like no 2 of these do I feel the same way about. But I genuinely feel a love towards those things. But it's just not the same thing. Like the way I love my work is not the way I love my wife. They're totally different things. Otherwise, my book could be really different and messy. Anyway, the point is, I don't know why I went there. The point is, in those cases, for the Greeks, when they say, because the Greeks had 7 different words for love, when they say philosophia, the idea of the love of wisdom or the love of knowledge, what you're talking about there is the same kind of submissive relationship. It's the same. Because if I'm going to love my wife, and what that means, I get less toxic, the less control I try to have. So it becomes more honest and more loving the more I submit to the relationship. Then presumably, if I have a relationship with knowledge, then I'm supposed to submit to it in exactly the same way. It's less to do with what you reveal, what you kind of like take apart, and much more to do with what is disclosed to you. You see what I'm saying? It's that difference.
Oh.
So, for example, it's the difference between digging away at something and trying to find out what it means, and sitting back and letting the light of day reveal itself to you.
Oh, okay. Doing nothing.
Kind of doing nothing. But you gain a lot more from allowing knowledge to reveal itself to you than you get from you trying to chase down a particular answer. And there's a very simple reason for this. Very, very simple reason. And the simple reason is because when you're trying to chase down a particular answer, there's an assumption that the question you're asking is the right one. And the problem is, if you admit to yourself that you don't know what it is that you're looking for, because that's why you're searching, so I don't know. Well, if you don't know, where do you get the certainty that the question you asked is the right one in the first place? Or what if you're asking the completely wrong question? Is that J. Cole line? The good news is you came a long way. The bad news is you went the wrong way. Like you went a long way the wrong way, homie. Like I don't know what to tell you.
Mm-hmm.
And that happens all the time, though. But it happens all the time. Like how many times do we feel like you start pursuing a thing with mad intention and mad energy because you think it's the right thing to do, only for you to get like 2/3 of the way down and realize, shoot, I was asking the wrong question from the jump. Like, I could have gone about this a whole different way and saved myself mad time. But because I was asking the wrong, and the problem is there's no way I would have known that I was asking the wrong question because I didn't know. That's the point. That's what not knowing is. Mm-hmm. But it's what that reveals is the way you're treating your relationship to knowledge. You're saying you don't know. So instead of trying to find out by like digging away at the thing, you could just sit back and let it reveal itself to you. See my point? Submissive relationship. Now.
So you're saying how does that translate to like a romantic relationship though? Like, so you're saying stop trying to control. So the digging away would be the controlling it and possessing it, and the just let it be would be like.
I'll give you an example. So toxic. You said beforehand toxic male attitudes. And I'm not afraid to say like I'm a male, which means there's toxic tendencies. I don't know what to tell you. That happens sometimes. I know. Yes. It happens sometimes, right? Mm-hmm. Don't you think you get away with it because you're female? Is like suddenly you're angelic. You have your own ish too, but. Don't play with me. We can have a whole seminar on female stuff, but let's not do that. No, but toxic male traits, right? Let me give an example of what I mean. I could give into some toxic male traits where, for example, let's say you and I have a conversation and maybe the conversation goes left. Or maybe you're just in a bad mood. Or maybe I don't like Or maybe I don't like the way you responded to me on a certain thing, right? Like, I don't mean like you were rude, but I mean, there was something wrong with your tone, or you seem funny, you seem offish, right?
It's not what you said, it's how you said it.
That thing, that female thing, that, right? Let's just
What do you
that.
mean? You just said that you feel that way.
No, I already did. So let's just say that's the case, right? As a dude, there is this tendency that occurs in my mind. Mm-hmm. Stop it. I saw what your mind. No, I heard what your brain did there. Stop it.
What?
Because you heard me say as a dude twice and made it funny.
No, that's not why I laughed. That's not at all why I laughed.
Oh, what was it?
I just put my leg up on the table and I imagined that the whole table started laughing. Sorry.
So what are you at a moment? Is this your
basically
Banana Republic bananas? This is your bananas moment? Hey, by the way, total digression. It's got nothing to do with nothing. Total digression. But you know, there's a new HBO documentary called Allen versus Farrow. You need to watch that shit.
I want to see it. I heard of this.
You need to watch this. Yeah, I want to watch it with you, but I think I need to steal your subscription to watch it. But the point is, we'll talk about this later. But anyway, the idea is he's a nasty man. But that aside, he's a nasty man. The point is, what were we talking about? Toxic male traits, right? So one of those things, so let's say that happens, right? You say a thing, whatever else. And one of the things I could do as a male is respond to that by trying to figure out what's wrong with you.
Right.
So I could start digging and be like, hey, why are you acting like that? Hey, what's wrong with you? Hey, why you behave? And sometimes your mood will be, yeah, but just leave me alone. Or like, I'm not in the mood to talk about right now, or whatever else. Now, I've seen that conversation, just that whole I'm not in the mood to talk about it right now, go way left. Because there are certain dudes who just can't stand for that. No, we're going to talk about it is what we're going to do. If listen, we're going to talk about it. I want to find out what's wrong with you. Were you hiding something from me? Are you hiding something from me?
Oh, I've never experienced this. I must have dated some very good men, which I didn't think I did, but
no, you didn't.
I didn't. But I've never experienced this level of insanity.
I've seen this mad times. I've seen it mad times. It just depends on the level of insecurity. Like particular dudes in certain situations, especially if your man's is insecure at the time for his own reasons and hasn't realized it. Like maybe, like I said, two people having a bad day at the same time. So maybe he's having a bad day that day, and for whatever reason, my man hasn't picked up on his own insecurities. You act a way that isn't comforting to him, and then he reacts like that. Oh, I can think of who I mean, and you'll know exactly who I mean.
All of a sudden, you're cheating on him?
No, think about this. We both know somebody. We both know, I'm not even gonna say his name because I'm not trying to air my man out, but we both know an Eastern European that lives near me see, the description fits.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying nothing about Eastern Europeans. It's just that he happens to be Eastern European. I'm not saying the two things are related. But, and I've seen him have that conversation with her. Like, I've seen it. Shoot, I was involved in one of them. Because he thought something was a little bit...
Oh, God.
Okay, this is my point. So, depending on the level of insecurity, you could start digging away at her, trying to find the answer. And your thing is that you're only trying to find the answer. And whenever she responds, she doesn't respond rationally. You get more angry. All right. Otherwise, you could just sit back, give her space, and trust in the fact that you already have a loving relationship, which means that she wants to tell you what's going on in her life, but maybe she's just not ready right now. Like, she trusts you, which is why she loves you. So if you just have faith in the fact that that's the case, she'll tell you when she's ready to tell you. And if she ain't ever ready to tell you, homie, that's what that is.
You gotta accept it.
But that's what that is. Like, maybe it's just something she don't want to talk about.
It goes the other way too. Sometimes women nag and what are you thinking? What's wrong? And shut up.
No, very true. Very, 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 very true. But no, I'm not trying. But that's true, right? So it goes that way too. My point is that it's in kind of.
I don't like how many berries you said. You act like you have personal experience with.
I almost thought I got away with that.
So
was that far away from getting away with that?
Yeah, I don't like that.
I almost snuck past that. It's just inches. I almost got that one. Nah, I'm playing with you. No, but my point is that even in these kind of like everyday examples of just arguments with a loved one, or with a relative, or with people you care about, or whatever, man. Just even in these everyday examples, you can see how this whole attitude towards knowledge, this idea that it's something that I have to have, that I must possess, that I need to have knowledge, this attempt to grasp at it all the time, ends up either not, in the least, failing, and in the worst, becomes kind of like counterproductive. It actually makes things worse than better. You actually know less than you did before. You made things more confusing.
You push the person away.
Push the person away. And that's my point. It all boils down to this myth that is primarily being propagated by academia and academic institutions, namely that one, knowledge can be possessed, and you have to come here to get it because we got it. We the experts. We have all the knowledge. Now you got to come here and get it. And this for me, I'm gonna stop talking in a second because you got to tell me something. But this for me. This goes some way towards explaining this kind of like modern day angst, man. The reason why everybody's anxious and unsure of everything, and is this kind of like
what?
Yeah, man, it's all tied up, bro. In my head, everything's all tied up. I'm a philosopher, bro.
Explain.
Don't explain me. Don't do that. You explain.
I don't know because I didn't say it. You did.
I mean, say something. I've been running my mouth for 30 minutes. I'm bored. No.
Explain.
All right. Would you agree? Let's just observe 2 points. And tell me if you agree on these 2 points.
Observing.
1. Stop making fun of me. No, I'm playing. 1. 1. Would you agree that there is like a general sense of doubt amongst the population?
Doubt? What do you mean by doubt? Doubt in what?
Exactly. Let's say that there's a broad sense of doubt in the traditional authority figures. How's that?
Yeah, like politicians, like...
That works.
Yeah, I think that there's a lack of trust in authority figures.
Would you extend that to... No, you're right. But go ahead. Tell me who else fits in that, right? So like we're saying politicians, who else would fall into that category?
So even so since we're talking about education, or we were talking about education, definitely like I have students who will say like universities are,
we don't trust you. We think you're lying to us.
No, that the institution is a scam.
Yeah, facts.
Because they recognize it's just about making money at this point. And when you become that disingenuous as an institution, well, then you lose all authority and credibility with people because now everyone sees it and no one trusts you.
Right.
Yeah.
So, all right. So we go politicians, would extend that to academic institutions. I would too. I would extend that probably to
courts.
The government, generally speaking, all government.
Yeah.
Even
media,
especially media. Fake news.
Oh God.
Fake news. Fake news.
China has total respect for Donald Trump and for Donald Trump's very, very large brain.
First they called it the Wuhan virus. Fake news. There is no virus, ladies and gentlemen. It'll go away in the summer, ladies and gentlemen. It'll be gone. And it'll just be like that. It'll just go away. Remember him said that at one point? Remember he just said, I've heard it'll come in the summertime and it'll just go away. Just like that. Bro. It's been over a year with this thing now.
Remember the time he drew where the hurricane was going to come?
This is a tough hurricane. One of the wettest we've ever seen from the standpoint of water.
No, it's right here. I know it's right here. Look, it's I drew it. I drawn it. It's right here. Or like when the solar eclipse, and here's my man looking at it. It's really bright. I can't see no more. Like, what is wrong with you? All right, but just incredible, like incredible. I don't know if we're just taking a moment to kind of appreciate the last 4 or 5 years, but yeah, just incredible moments. Fam. But okay, cool. So we'd include government, politicians, the media, academia, academic institutions, religious figures.
Yeah.
Cool. I'd include them too. And then lastly, would you also include shoot, I forgot who I was just gonna say. We have religious figures, government, media, oh, medicine.
Doctors, yeah.
Scientists.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, we've seen for the last kind of like, this is what I'm saying about Trump, right? Because he's really smart. Some people say I have a great brain. They don't know how I understand this, but I just seem to like understand.
You know, I had an uncle who was a doctor.
He was a doctor.
I'm not a doctor, but I'm like a person that has a good, you know what.
Anyway, so my point is that, so we've seen this kind of like the criticisms of Fauci's criticisms.
Like directly in the book. What if
it just knocks it out? It knocks it out.
It knocks it right out.
It knocks it right out. I'm saying it does a real number on it.
We can just inject that directly
into the body.
Right, and then I see the disinfectant where it knocks it out in a minute, 1 minute. And is there a way we can do something like that by injection inside or almost a cleaning? Because you see it gets on the lungs and it does a tremendous number in the lungs, so it'd be interesting to check that.
Or something. I say again, I'm not a doctor. I just have a very good brain. I know stuff. The guy's incredible. But so what I'm saying is, we saw kind of medical institutions being criticized. We saw scientists, academics, all of the traditional authority figures, all of them, at some point or another over the course of the last, I mean, especially in the last 4 or 5 years, but I would say it's been going on for longer than that. But over the course, especially over the last 4 or 5 years, we've seen trust and faith and belief in these institutions erode to the point of, I don't know. I mean, it goes somewhere towards explaining all of these kind of conspiracy theories and these wacky ideas people are running around with, right? Because nobody trusts anybody anymore. Nobody believes anything anymore. So we can observe that first point. You would agree that there's a general lack of trust.
Yes.
Okay. I feel like you have to agree to the second point because you've said it 3 or 4 times before and it's annoyed me. So you kind of have to agree, but we'll find out. The second point I want us to observe. Would you say it's also true that we are in a moment, particularly in, let's say, metropolitan industrialized societies? So what we're talking about is like, the big cities with mixes of demographics, right? Would you say in those places especially, we're at a point of like peak wokeness?
I think people think they're at a point of.
I'm not saying it's true. I'm just saying, yeah.
True, but I think people think that, yes. I think that there's it's very formulaic, like wokeness equals this X, Y, and Z, and you must believe X, Y, and Z. And if you do not believe X, Y, and Z, then, oh my God, you are not woke, and also you're the devil.
And also you're the devil, of course, yeah. You have to be, of course. And you're a racist, and you're probably white, and you're probably male, and you do all of those terrible things, right? Yeah, of course. Okay, so what I'm saying is, there's this kind of a very much more popular, and you've said it in the past performance. We were talking about the revolutions or the revolts or the protests during George Floyd and whatever else and all that other kind of stuff. Rest in peace. But all of that stuff, You were talking about how you felt like there was a new energy. This new generation is a little bit different. They're a little bit more energized. They're a little more open to things that maybe previously we weren't. They see things in a broader way than maybe we did. You said all of this, no? Cool. So you would agree then we are at a point historically of, not necessarily like they're really as woke as they could be, but there's, broader open-mindedness than has ever been the case before. Progressive thinking, should we call it?
Yes.
And then here's my point, though. Here's what I find so interesting. That people all the time will talk about one or the other one of these things, right? So you'll hear podcasts, lectures, interviews, conversations, whatever, about wokeness, about political correctness, about all of that kind of stuff, Black Lives Matter, whatever, right? We'll hit that conversation is endless, right? It goes on all day long. On the other side, people will have the conversation about how there's this kind of general distrust in authority, broad one, right? And it's produced this kind of broad sense of doubt that's leading to all these conspiracy theories and whatever else. My thing is, I find it weird that the two things are happening at the same time and nobody ever thought that they were related.
What do you mean?
I think one thing is making the other one happen.
Related to
doubt.
Doubt?
Yeah, profound, deep-seated doubt.
Do you mean, when you say doubt, do you mean like questioning authority?
I mean that, but I also mean, like an existential uncertainty, right? Like, I mean like real deep doubt. That I think is just being, like, how we know that anxiety is at a higher level now than it has ever been. We know that the use of medication for mental health issues is now greater than it's ever been. We know that the rate of depression and suicide is now greater than it's ever been in these societies in particular. We know all of these things. So there is this kind of broad, deep sense of depression. I was talking to somebody the other day, one of my students, in fact, and they were saying to me, is it just me, or do you just have this terrible feeling inside you that there's something just wrong with the world? Like something's just deeply wrong. And I empathize with it immediately because I was that age once and I felt like that all the time. But two, because
I think I still feel like that.
I still feel that way, and I feel like a lot of people feel like that. Like, I feel like a lot of people feel in the pit of their stomach there's just something deeply wrong with the world, and it's not just the economy isn't good, or the job market isn't great, or Brexit wasn't a good idea, or any of that stuff. It's not just that. But there's this distinct feeling on the part of people that there's just something deeply, profoundly wrong with the world. I find it interesting that there's such a broad feeling of this deep wrongness at the same time of there being this broad confidence about what is and isn't woke and what isn't the right thing to do politically. You don't find that odd? You don't find it odd that the same person who can tell you with profound confidence the right way to structure society in order for it to be moral and just is also the same person who's terrified at the pit of their stomach every night? You don't find that weird? I find that weird. And I don't think they're unrelated things.
Well, you're not explaining how they would be related.
Because I'm not explaining everything to you. Like, what is this? A seminar? Like, what is... Yeah. Because... All right. So it has something to do with what you were saying beforehand. The commodification of knowledge, right? So once you've made it a commodity, once you start charging me money for it, once you've told me whatever else, and then when you add to that the fact that you've made yourself the locus of knowledge, this is where knowledge is kept with these authority figures or whatever else, you kind of inspire a degree of distrust anyway, one. And then when you commodify it, you make it, you inspire a degree of resentment. I'll start resenting knowledge. Because if you tell me that one, only you can have it, and then two, that it actually costs me something to get it, then what you're implicitly saying is if I'm poor, I have to be dumb.
Right.
You're not saying
out of it. Yeah.
I don't have a choice, is what you're saying. I am not allowed to not be dumb if I don't have the income. And again, that doesn't mean I'm actually dumb. It just means according to your social description of what is and isn't dumb, I'm dumb. So I end up developing this degree of resentment towards the authority figures because they're telling me that only they have the knowledge. I'm not allowed access to it because I'm broke, which isn't my fault, but that's what it is. So now, according to them, I have to be dumb. And then to make matters worse, to exacerbate this further, What that means is that on the one hand, I start resenting and questioning the traditional authority figures, which tend to be the slightly center-right kind of leaning peoples, the institutionalists, the conservatives, the ones who want to keep things the way they are, the status quo people, that lot. But the people who are supposed to be countering that, your traditional leftists, ends up reinforcing the same message.
Which is?
They end up telling that same audience that only some people have access to knowledge, and I happen to be one of them.
I'm
special. The difference between me and your fascist friend over there is that I'm kind to you about it.
So it's like, I know what you mean. So it's like there's this phenomenon of like people becoming woke and then like acting like assholes to everyone. So they'll be like, you'll like talk down to people and you think like, well, this is where this whole part of where this whole like you have to believe exactly as I believe or else you're the devil.
Yes.
And you're not woke.
Yes.
Just like this is where this comes from, this idea that like you are the center of knowledge of this type of like what is correct, of what is woke, of what is knowledgeable, of what is considered to be socially correct, morally correct, just or whatever like the term is. Yeah.
Yes. Exactly. But that's exactly the point. And I think that phenomenon that you're describing is exacerbating this issue. It's making that sense of doubt worse. So if the people on the traditional side of things, right, the traditional conservative authority figures and so on and so forth, if those people are people I already resent and already have some degree of doubt or some questions about, because they're the ones who are telling me that I'm poor, so that means I have to be dumb. So if I'm questioning them anyway, and then the people who claim to be on my side, the so-called leftists, the socialists who traditionally don't like those conservatives or whatever else, and would disagree with them and would argue that no, it's important we extend education rights to everybody else, nevertheless are making the same argument ultimately. All they're saying is unless you have access to education, you're still dumb. I'd just like to give that to you.
Right. There's no understanding that knowledge comes from different places and it doesn't have to be in like this institutionalized setting. So it come from other avenues. Yeah.
So to the person who's outside of that matrix of meaning, right? So to the person who sits outside of that kind of metropolitan industrialized society who's concerned with academic knowledge and blah, 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 blah. To that person who's been called dumb up until this point, they hear the language on both sides sounding exactly the same. They all sound the same.
What they're saying, because let's be real, academia is a very specific thing. It's a very specific way of learning. It's a very specific methodology to approach to education. And it's not for everyone. It's really not. It's hard for the majority of people because it's not a natural, intuitive way to learn for most people. There are some people who are really good and excel at it, and that's great, but that's not everyone. And so even for, like, I have students who have, like, left college, left school because they're just like, nah, school's not for me. And they're referring to the fact this is just not how they learn, and this learning environment doesn't cater to them, you know?
Absolutely. No, I totally agree.
Yeah, and basically what you're saying is both sides are telling you, one side is saying you got to learn here, but if you're poor, screw you. And the other side is saying you got to learn here, but we'll give you access to this. But if neither side is taking into consideration,
well, what if I don't learn like that?
What if, does this even work for everyone? Like, what if people don't learn this way? And also, like, I think this speaks to, like, different types of knowledge as, like, what does it mean to be smart, and what is intelligence, you know?
Exactly.
Intelligence is not one thing, and we've told people that intelligence is like one thing and that's it.
Exactly.
So, you know, there's so many different kinds. Like, there are some people that I've met who are so good at organizational things, and it's mind-boggling, but we don't consider this intelligence.
Yeah.
Well, some people who are really good at, like, I don't know, like, just like other types of things that you wouldn't think of.
We talk about it all the time. Like, people don't relate hip-hop lyricism to intelligence, and I don't see how they're not the same thing.
How you can, yeah.
But they'll hear hip-hop, and because they hear a beat and it's music in their head, they'll go, "Oh, well, this is just something." They won't pay attention, and they'll miss all of the profound intelligence in everything they say, because that doesn't qualify as intelligence. You ain't get a degree.
Yeah.
Y'all check out anybody who has the time or has the inclination needs to go and check out a debate by a guy called John Henrik Clarke. You know who I'm talking about, don't you? John Henrik Clarke has a debate with a woman called Mary Mary.
Oh, this is the debate about art in Africa.
Yeah.
So, yeah, where she's basically like, well, Africa, the entire continent of Africa had no civilization.
But it's basically her argument.
We know this because they didn't have art.
Mary Lefkowitz, I want to say.
Huh?
I want to say her name was Mary Lefkowitz.
Something like that.
Yeah.
So an entire continent filled with human beings had no civilizations because they had no art. Yeah. But the way that they're defining civilization and the way that they're defining art is very particular to Europe.
Professor Clarke, do you think that we should always judge history in terms of race?
Look, there was no such thing as race in the psyche of the world until the Europeans put it into the psyche of the world. The Africans knew nothing about race and didn't think they belonged to anything called a race. I'm afraid that you're not only a delinquent in African history, you're delinquent in African folklore. So much of our history is tied up with our folklore, but Europe has introduced words that didn't exist in anyone's vocabulary before. No one ever thought of anybody being inferior or superior. Intelligent people don't even a human being can't fall into that category. And nobody had the extensive problem the Europeans had with women, because in the period of feudalism in Europe that lasted over 1,000 years, the white woman in Europe was a vassal. Right. But the African woman has never been a vassal in that sense. If we check out the culture unity of black Africa, dealing with the history of the matriarch, I mean, he's got all evidence right there that we were the first people to support a woman as head of state. We were the first people to support a woman as riding head of her army. We were the first people to make women a god.
So it's like what they're implicitly saying is, unless you're European, you're not civilized. That's basically what that means. If you're not European, you're not civilized. We're just giving you all a whole bunch of other...
This woman was an academic, and this is the widely the most accepted understanding within academia.
It's the popular position.
Yeah.
John Henrik Clarke is, to my mind, like one of the examples of exactly what we're talking about, because John Henrik Clarke was generally rejected by most academic institutions because he didn't go through the regular process or the regular procedures by which to get his qualifications. My man did all of his reading on his own and didn't attend the school, but didn't attend the school because he grew up in 1920s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, whatever, the United States as a black man. What did you think was going to happen?
He wasn't allowed to go to school.
Like, how did you think he was going to navigate that environment? But as a result of that, the guy's never been fully recognized and fully accredited as the kind of academic he is, despite the fact that he's got 4 billion books in his head. Like, if you listen to him for 5 minutes, you become very well aware of how well informed he is. Or if you read anything he wrote, you become very well aware of how informed he is. But because he doesn't meet the standard definition of what intelligence is supposed to look like, according to European, Western kind of like academic institutions, then he doesn't qualify. And then the same thing is the case, generally speaking. Unless your knowledge is measurable, empirical, something that I can kind of like weigh up, it doesn't even qualify as knowledge. And even if you had it and it qualified as knowledge, you don't qualify as being knowledgeable until I've given you that credit. I have to accredit you for it. I always found it so offensive. We're not going to end on this point. We're going to end on one final philosophical point right after this. But just think about this for a second. I always found this like fundamentally baffling. You go to high school, and then you go to like wherever else before we go to university, right? Cool.
We go to high school and
then high school and then college. Cool. So over here we go high school and then sometimes sixth form or sometimes college and then university, but whatever.
So college over there is different than college over here. For us, college and university is the same thing.
It's the same thing. Yeah, no, for us, college is pre-university.
It's your last 2 years of high school. It's over here will be the equivalent of the last 2 years of high school.
That's exactly what it is. And we have some schools over here that do that. So it's what's called a sixth form. And the sixth form is literally you stay in your high school for 2 extra years. And that qualifies as the bit before you go to university. But But right, the point is this. So you go to high school, you do all you kind of work your ass off, you get your grades because your intention is to go to university. And you work your butt off. Nobody makes any bones about how hard you have to work and the responsibility they place on your shoulders in order for you to get the grades so that you can go to the university you want to go to, right? Cool. And then let's say you get the best grades that you want to get, and then that allows you access. Look at the dickheads. That allows you access to the university you want to go to. Cool. And then let's say you work real hard at university because the standards are really high and they make you work real hard, like you were saying beforehand. They're going to air you out if you don't do your reading. So you work your ass off to do that. And then you get your degree. And then when you get your degree, I'm supposed to thank them. Like when you go to receive your degree, you go up to stage, you shake his hand, you're supposed to thank him. Bitch, you should be thanking me. And then they will use the statistics of my success to advertise how good a university they are.
Yeah.
But let me get this straight. You said from the outset, only the best of the best can get in here. You also said that the best of the best have to make themselves the best of the best. I ain't helping you with that. You got to do your own study. So we only let in the best of the best. And then they have to work their butts off the entire time. And when they come out the back end, I'm going to say, I did that. Look at this university. We are the greatest place in the universe. We make geniuses. No, you don't. All that says to me is that you house geniuses.
Yeah.
This is what you said. We only let in geniuses. And then when they stay geniuses and leave again, you take credit for it.
But many of them are not geniuses because I'm in a
also true.
And
no, that's fair. That's also true. But you see my point. There's an inherent scam. Like, how is it not your work? Like, how is that not what you did? How is that not your success? But they get to come away from this with, they're the ones with a reputation. Oh, I did all of this. I want to see one of these schools. I want to see Oxford University take a kid from Peckham or Brixton and make him a genius. Now you're going to show me you're now be a university. Take a kid with no hope and make him a kid with a hope. Like every single hope in the world. Now, cool. Okay, I might buy the fact that you guys know what you're doing. But if all you're taking are the kids that you're saying are the best of the best and then they stay the best of the best by the time they leave, you ain't do nothing. You didn't do nothing. Meanwhile, I'm paying you for it. And then while I'm at university, I'm supposed to bow to your authority, Mr. Lecturer. Hell no. Hell no. I used to say this to all my seminar leaders and all my lecturers. Bro, so long as I'm paying for this, I walk in when I want to walk in. I do what I want to do, the way I want to do it, how I want to do it.
That I disagree with. I'm sorry. That goes back to the conversation from last week with the students.
I know.
Why do I gotta have a deadline?
Because I'm paying for this.
Then don't come to my class. Get out of my classroom. Don't come to school. You don't want a freaking deadline.
No, listen. I'm with you about the deadlines. I'm with you about academic integrity.
But it's all part of the same thing. Like, no, you got to be in my class on time. When it's time to be there, stay in class. If you leave, you do not get credit for that day. No. There's
I'm down.
rules that you're going to follow in my classroom.
Then in that case, I want my check back.
No problem. I think
no, because your income that week was a combination of what we paid you. So you worked for me.
No, you see.
So I want my money back.
I don't agree.
You're doing a bad job. Because you work for me.
I don't agree with that.
I pay you.
It doesn't matter. It's a teacher doesn't work for you.
They do when you ask me to pay you for it.
To educate.
I agree with you, but this is my whole point. This is the point we're trying to make at the outset. I totally agree with you in principle. But the second you commodify knowledge, this is what ends up happening.
Right.
Produce that resentment.
That entitlement comes from.
Because you produce that resentment.
So you know I can do what I want.
Because I did pay for it.
Right. Well, I think no one should pay for it.
Here you and me totally, because that's what it ends up messing up knowledge. It ends up messing up the pursuit of it, the study, the whatever else. The whole thing is
money
lost.
messes up commodification.
Everything
messes up everything. Whenever you commodify something, it's a wrap.
Exactly, facts. But this was my thing. Like particularly when the university lecturers would try to lean on their authority and be like, "No, I'm the genius up in here, and you're gonna do what I say." No, homie. No, I said it to one of my lecturers, bro. You know the difference between you and me? My mother had me 10 years later than yours. That's it. That's the difference between the two of us. In 10 years, I'm where you are right now. You are no smarter, better, wiser, faster, nothing than me. But you just happened to be born 10 years before I did.
Or better, or any of those things. But there is, and we've said this before, there is, as the teacher, as the expert, there's a certain amount of knowledge that we do have.
Facts.
And people come to us for said knowledge. So...
But I think that's absolutely true. And that was always my point. My thing was when I was at university, if I were to press you on a particular point as the authoritative expert in the room, you should be able to put me down because you are the authoritative expert in the room. When I'm in a classroom and I'm teaching, trust me, student says something wrong, I'm gonna put you down. And I don't mean that in the sense of like aggression or what have you. I mean, I know more than you, and I can show you. Like, I understand knowledge in a way you don't understand. It's not even that I've read more books than you have. I've manipulated the idea of knowledge in a way you can't fathom
But
yet.
you just contradicted what you said.
Why?
Because you're like, no, I'm paying for this, blah, blah, blah. You work for me. You're not better or smarter or wiser or whatever.
Yeah.
But like, no, but then they are a little bit. You're saying that like you
No,
are.
what I'm saying is, I'm saying they can't. Yeah, I agree with you. What I'm saying is they can't lean on their authority alone to make that point. They have to make that point. Like, you have to be smarter than me. Like, you know how there's some teachers in a classroom, for example, some lecturers, some whatever's, where they just don't seem to have a rough time with their class. Like, everybody seems to kind of treat them nice. Everybody gets along with them, what have you. Everybody seems to respect them inherently. There's none of that weird challenge. And it's because everybody believes that they have some kind of expertise. I believe you. Like, you've had teachers like that who just seem like they know something, like they real smart. Like, I want to listen when this person's talking, because I can't tell you. It's all females as well in my life, all of them. But like the female teachers in my life that like, fam, I hung on their every word. I want to hear everything you have to say.
That's amazing, because I really feel like students have a harder time with female professors, and like there's more of a challenge if you have a female professor. My students all the time, because I'm a woman, because I'm young, because I'm of color, because of how I sound like them, I look like them. So I have certain students that automatically question my ability.
There you go. Yeah, I'm with you. I understand.
You know?
I understand.
It's just like, oh, what do you know? You're too much like me. You can't know anything.
But that's my point. See, and then what that tells you is that they've bought into a certain idea of knowledge. It has to look and sound a particular way because the myth of knowledge is academia has knowledge. This is what it looks like.
Right.
Exactly. Which is why I turn up in a fitted and looking fly every single day. Like, nice line up. You know what I'm saying? Looking all mashallah.
All right, calm down.
Big beard or line on my face, looking all mashallah. Shit.
Oh, mashallah, bro. But the point is, my point is,
I can't stand you.
You love me. This is your
Mashallah.
issue. You love me, bro. You know what I'm saying? Big
Like, you know,
line up, looking at
it's the opposite of mashallah.
Bro, it's a song.
No, but that's the opposite.
I know. I'm just saying.
Happiness is the opposite.
I know. I understand that, but that's why it's so fire, because there's a particular song where my man says like, I got a big beard lined up looking on mashallah, and I just loved it. It's just like, bro, that's
you have to tell me the song. I need to know who this is.
I'm gonna send it to you. You will love it, by the way. You would love it. I'm gonna send it to you in a bit.
Shit, I play my part. I play mine. It's the hand I got dealt with. I just play my cards. Shit ain't fucked up. Alhamdulillah. Big beard or line on my face, looking all mashallah. Shit.
But the point is, so look, we are going to wrap this up because we need to go and do some other things. But let me just say this, and I kind of feel like we can address this point in the next seminar too. For me, the whole thing is Nietzsche. The whole thing is Nietzsche, right? Let me just say that. It's all Nietzsche. You know why it's all Nietzsche? Nietzsche. Friedrich Nietzsche. You know why it's all Nietzsche? In one of Nietzsche's books called The Antichrist, right? He says, let me just give you this. He says, truth is not something one person has and another has not. Only peasants can think of truth in such a way. And think about, he's directing this at the academics. Only a peasant would think that they have truth and somebody else doesn't have truth. That you have knowledge and those people don't have knowledge. You gotta be an idiot to think that that's how knowledge works, fam. That's not knowledge. This is the same dude who I think has been popularly misinterpreted by most academics and most society ever since, who told us that at some point in the course of our civilization, a time will come when we will be staring into the abyss and it will stare back at you. And I feel like this is that time.
It's staring at us.
This is that moment where everybody's got so much anxiety, but they feel like they're woke. They feel like they're right. What they've done is exactly what Nietzsche said. They've killed God, but haven't figured out how to live without him.
Replacing God with the self.
Trying to, in any case.
Yeah, this is, so I remember I told you about this. I was reading about the nef and the ruh. The nef is in Islam, within Sufism, it's I guess the translation will be like the mind or the ego, right?
So,
and there's different stages of the nef, and one of the stages, and it's one of the lowest stages, is when the nef seeks to replace God with itself. or something like, I know everyone's not religious, but what I mean is like a higher power, like the ability to understand.
Wallahi, it is amazing. I mean, yes, please continue.
But so there's that concept in Sufism.
No, I'm
that,
with you. I absolutely, yeah, exactly.
and actually, there is a Islamic scholar that I was reading about. He's a philosopher, and he wrote about this, and he claims that Nietzsche actually stole this from Islam.
Oh, I wouldn't be surprised in the slightest.
Yeah.
That wouldn't shock me at all. And I'd find it a bit weird that he would have taken it from Islam. I could see him taking it from India. I could see him taking it from East Asia. Islam would be a bit interesting, but it's not impossible. It's not impossible. At the end of the day, the idea is that that principle is not something that's unique to kind of like to Nietzsche, and it's not unique to one or two philosophies. It's a broad notion that at some stage in the course of psychological, philosophical development, spiritual development even, but at some stage in the course of human development, it gets to the point where you think that you can kill God, like you can do without the concept of infinitude, because you understand all things.
I feel like that's where I was when I was at my height of my like, I'm a leftist, communist, whatever.
Yes. When you run around telling everybody that you know, and every time somebody says, you know, that's wrong.
Yeah, no, I was really unsufferable. I must have been horrible to be around. But I feel like that's when I read that, I identified it as where I was at. I was in that place of like, I have all the knowledge, I know.
Yeah.
And I tried to replace God with myself, my own knowledge and abilities or whatever I thought I had.
This is what I'm saying. This is exactly what I'm trying to tell you. And I feel like this is what Nietzsche anticipated in what he was saying when he says that at some stage the abyss, you will stare into the abyss and the abyss will stare back. And that modern society has at some point killed God. We just haven't fully understood what that meant. Like we haven't figured out how to live without him yet. And that for me is a really, really, really nice summary of exactly where we stand. We're talking about societies that for the first time in human history are largely atheistic. That's a new experiment in human history. That's new. That's not happened before. So these are experiments in atheism on a scale we've never seen in human history. Experiments in science and reason that we've never seen in human history on this kind of scale.
The thing is, what worries me is that when we go in this direction and make this criticism, it's like, what are we saying? Are we saying everyone has to be religious then? Everyone has to believe in God?
No, at all. But again, only peasants can think of truth that way, because then we're going to end up what we're going to end up saying is that some people know what God means and other people don't know what God means, and this is what God is and that isn't what God is. But that's not what the conversation I feel like people need to end up having. And we're not talking about we're philosophers. Remember, we're not talking about following a particular religion or following a particular God or anything like that. It's the understanding. It's the thing that we started off on. It's the understanding that in order for me to really truly have something revealed or disclosed to me, it's a matter of submitting to it as opposed to digging away it. I got to step back as opposed to stepping forward. And when you engage the concept of God without being overly religious or overly kind of like attached to a particular institution or what have you, what you're talking about is the idea of there being something so much greater than you, before you, after you, infinitude, right? This concept upon which you can submit. It's a thing to which you can submit. Like you can put it in the hands of God, as it were, because you understand that you were born into a world and you'll leave it one day.
So even if you're like an atheist, you can submit in the sense that like, it's not that you have to believe in God or religion or whatever. It can be like you're submitting to the universe or to the idea that you don't have all the power and the knowledge.
Yeah, facts. There's a look. I'll leave you with this. I'm gonna put some music on in the background as we sign off. Right, a little bit of J. Cole in the background to sign us off. But the point is that there's that Islamic scholar that tells that joke. So he has there's a Q&A. Somebody comes up to an Islamic scholar, asks him about Islam, blah 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 blah. He's an atheist. He said, "Why should I believe?" And the Islamic scholar says to him, "Brother, I'm so glad you asked me this question because you need to understand something. I love atheists. I'm a very big fan of atheists. I like them all very, very much. I know I'm a Muslim scholar and that sounds anti-intuitive, but let me explain this to you." He says, atheists, you have to understand, first of all, you're doing the right thing. because what you're doing is, instead of just believing because your family told you to believe, or because your school told you to believe, or your culture or your society, you're questioning. And this is good. You should be questioning. And this is a very, very good thing. And in fact, what he says is, as a Muslim, we're halfway in agreement with you. He said, to be a Muslim, you only need to say one phrase. The first half of that phrase is La ilaha, which means there is no God. And as an atheist, you're halfway right. We just need you to finish the sentence off. Illallah. Except God. You're absolutely right. There is no God. Except God. Once you understand that kind of weird Islamic logic, all things make a hell of a lot more sense. You gotta understand that weird Islamic logic. No, but what I'm saying is, without sounding like we're just trying to promote Islam here, there's a broad understanding of reality, being, and my position in the universe that makes things a hell of a lot easier to deal with, make things a hell of a lot easier to interpret, makes things a hell of a lot easier to handle and to navigate my way through. This weird burden on your shoulders that you're the one that's supposed to understand, you're supposed to have the knowledge, you're supposed to pursue, you're supposed to get the answers, and if you don't know, it's because of a failing in you, really, really, really overinflates the importance of you to the rest of the universe and makes this way harder than it needs to be. But in any case, we'll talk about all of that next week as we get to seminar 51. But it has, I'm going to wrap up, right? So it has been Opus Seminar number 50 today. Thank you all for coming along. In any case, I appreciate all you guys being here. I have been your boy Dr. E. That has been your girl, the great Takes Tanzim. We will be back next week, same time, same place, 7 p.m. GMT, 2 p.m. EST, bringing that kind of education for a new generation. XPC, you usually have to pay through the nose for, the drives that you crush the white men, but you bring you that stuff they don't talk about, fam. In any case, in case there's been, I'm hyped. In case there are any doubts or any issues or what have you, we're still saying the same thing. Y'all mask up if you need to. Please stay home insofar as you have to. Look after yourselves, look after your families, and if you can get your vaccine, get vaccinated up and get everybody around you vaccinated up. Please make sure you do that. Same thing has always been the case, still is the case today. Oh, stop Asian hate. Don't do that in the United States. That's nasty.
Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that. Just stop. That's just nasty, fam. You don't need any of that. And it's because we understand over here that the principles are what the principles are, the same thing that they always were. Black lives been matter, black lives still matter, black lives will matter. If you don't, anybody disagrees with that, we'll speak to you no time, never. Peace.
If anybody wants to know the key to life, you gotta listen to this song that's in the background. It's called Fire Squad and it's by J. Cole. And the last verse is the key to life.
It's the key to life.
Oh, it's his boy that does it, and it's the key to life.
No, facts, man. Facts. I'm with you. But in any case, thank you, Mama, for being here for another open seminar. You were great today. Thank you. Thank you guys all for joining us in building together and all that. We're 2 weeks away from our 1 year anniversary. We'll see you all there for that one. But peace, love, blessings, one love, like all of that prosperity, goodness to all of y'all. We'll see you next week. All right? What?